Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Patrick McAndrew, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, John.
It is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from New Mexico. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about human potential in the digital age. This is a fascinating topic. And I think particularly in the day of technological disruption, in part driven by generative AI and deep machine learning, but all sorts of other technological innovations and disruptions as well. We truly are in the digital age. And what does that mean for the future of work? What does that mean for displacement of workers and jobs and even potential development of new careers and industries and work that we haven't even conceived of yet? All of this is up for debate. Nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know if AI is going to take over and we're going to have like some sort of dystopian Terminator scenario in the future, or if we're going to have some sort of like future Star Trek utopian future. Truth is, we'll probably be somewhere in the middle, and we're going to have to navigate things though as we go. And all of it comes back to the importance of recognizing our humanity and recognizing our human potential within this context of the digital age and technological disruption. So this is what we're going to explore together today. As we get started, I wanted to share Patrick's bio with everybody. As the founder and CEO of Hera, Patrick focuses on developing the whole person, knowing that high performance is determined by how you live, not just how you work. Patrick helps develop habits of mind to thrive in competitive environments. Patrick has trained leaders and high-performing teams to bring more structure into their lives for greater focus, energy, productivity, mental resilience, and life balance. I think all of that is fantastic. Patrick, anything you would like to highlight by way of your background and personal context before we dive on in further?
All of this actually came from a journey of, constantly recognizing that oftentimes the biggest thing that people are struggling with is there's something that I want, there's a person that I want to become, there's a way that I want to be. How do I get myself there? That's the hardest thing oftentimes. So there's a goal that I wish to fulfill. There's a new way of being that I wish to kind of come into, but I keep coming up against this resistance of myself, and I'm so enclosed within the chamber of my own lived experience that it's very hard for me to know how to live any differently. And this has been an ongoing journey for me in exploring this. It began 6 years ago when I was traveling around the United States teaching speed reading and memorization workshops to schools, colleges, companies. And I saw that it existed there, and I see it just as much today with the work that I do. And for me, it's been a constant process of deepening to understand that all of the challenges that we're facing today are in the kind of environment that I inhabit. So I live in the United States. I primarily work with people in the United States.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
Pretty much all of the struggles that they face are internal struggles. They're not struggles of external things, that they don't have enough, that they can't reach people quick enough, that they don't have enough information, that they don't have enough money, that they don't have enough food, that they don't have enough shelter. All of it's internal. It's not knowing themselves, not knowing how to actually induce calm within their own body, their mind being very restless, feeling anxious if they're not attached to their device because their worth and their value is so tethered to it. So in this age, what we're confronting with are internal problems. So that makes them invisible. And when they're invisible, it can be hard to put language to it. It can be hard to really articulate what's going on inside. So through my work in speaking, I'm trying to help people develop language that they can actually articulate and express what's going on inside. And then within the work of Hara, that's where we take it deeper to actually create alignment between this amazing time that we live in, but what it requires is some internal mastery, because it's not about pushing to go harder and use more drive and more momentum. That worked if you're a laborer, a bricklayer, or somebody working in a manufacturing facility. Right. That's not necessarily the tact that serves you very well in today's day and age. So that's a little encapsulation of what brought me here and what the work is about.
Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you for more of that background. And you're right, like the nature of work has shifted dramatically in recent decades. Not to say that we don't still have laborers. There are still construction workers and factory workers and people, there's workers of all sorts. But when you look at the composition of the economy in the US, we're speaking about specifically now, we're 80+% service sector economy, with a much smaller portion as production in industrial sector and a very small portion of agricultural sector. And so you go back in time 50 years and that was totally swapped. Like that was totally different. And so the makeup of today's economy and the types of jobs that we have are different. And largely that has been driven by technological changes and advances over time. Just like we've seen every kind of wave of new inventions making different types of work easier in the Industrial Revolution. Now people often talk about Industry 4.0, and we're in the digital age and we're in this kind of new era. The reality is, as much as people might be concerned about disruption of jobs and displacement of workers, that's always been the concern. Anytime there's new disruption, new innovation, and I think generally speaking, we would say we're better off today than we were 50 years ago in terms of the types of work we do and the way the economy has grown. And so I guess I say all of that to say I don't think we should be driven by fear with all this the digital transformation that we're experiencing, though it can be disconcerting and discomforting to people, particularly if they find themselves in jobs and careers that might be impacted by AI and some of these new developments. But there's always been that displacement. So, anyways, before we go on and talk more about this human potential piece and that humanity within the work that we do, regardless of how much technology we use or not, anything else you want to say about kind of the evolution? Let's just say for the last 50 years, like the evolution of how things have changed, generally speaking, from a high level, and then we'll dive more into where we're at today.
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about lately, taking it from a different stance of like the industrial age and whatnot. I've been trying to reflect on like what's valuable at different stages of life or different stages of our experience as a society. And when I think back to my mother's time, where we could consider it to be what I would call the age of access. So in Ireland, the priests, I'm from Ireland originally, the priests were still giving their sermons in Latin. That was definitely a huge element of creating this gatekeeper approach, where it was those who actually knew Latin that were able to provide the sermons. Yeah. And then you had very streamlined careers. So you had the doctor, you had the teacher, you had the lawyer, you had the civil service, people that worked in the civil service. And a lot of the things that people paid a lot of money for was for access to know certain things. So hence going to third level education was very important. But also a lot of the work that I do is with, or have done up to now, has been with insurance companies. And they've been around for a long time. And the reason why they were so successful at the beginning was because of this age of access, because they had access to these financial products, which nobody else did. And they were the gatekeepers of it. So you paid them essentially to get access to the products that they had. Then through the internet, we shifted out of that age of access, where all of those very tightly bound structures started to get eroded. And now it just started to be disseminated through the age of information. So now having suddenly these insurance companies, their value was not on being the gatekeepers, because everybody could go on and find out what different financial products existed. The same was true for third level education. Really, what you learn in the lecture hall is not so valuable anymore because you can find it everywhere else. There's other elements which become important there. And hence, with podcasting, a lot of content being created, we're now dealing with this overabundance of information, which is actually calling for this sprouting, which is coming now for what I would consider to be more of an age of wisdom. So it's no longer about knowledge. It's no longer about how much one can consume to learn, but it's how applicable it is. So it's actually about how functional you are in what you do, because now you can't hang your identity or your worth on your career or your profession, because it could be upended in 2 or 3 or 4 years. Yeah. People who were very proud and satisfied as programmers are facing a great shift. People who are very proud and satisfied in being creatives are now facing a great shift with AI. So, but that doesn't mean that they lose their value, because they've learned things, they've developed certain skills. It's how can they transfer that into another way of being, which means that they must have some wisdom and depth to them, some capacity to have insight and inquiry into looking at themselves deeply and how they relate to the world around them. That wasn't needed in the past. You got a degree, you got a certain element of skills, and you could carry that with you for 40 years. You just incrementally upgraded your education. So what's happening now, I see, is that because things are changing so rapidly, and the game is not won by who has more information, the game is won by those who are actually able to cut through all of the information and identify the most useful path to go about things. And that's wisdom. That's wisdom that's required there. So this is something that I see of this transition. It's a little hard to see it at this very moment, but in 2, 3, 4 years, we'll see it more. And that will be part of this shift, which will move away more and more from online spaces to in-person spaces, because all of that will be about actually sharing wisdom with each other. transmitting it to each other, as opposed to just picking up on comments on forums and threads.
Yeah, I find that really compelling. This idea of focusing on wisdom as the main human contribution in the digital age. How do we start to make that shift? Because I'll tell you, especially when we're talking about online interactions, wisdom is typically not the word I would use to describe how many people engage on the internet, whether it be like the Twitter wars or various social media battles and the anonymous discussion forums and all these things. Like, people aren't often exhibiting great deals of wisdom, in my experience, when they're engaging digitally and engaging online. But I agree. I think that the path forward for us as a society, as we're engaging with this technology and this disruption, comes through enhancing our wisdom, and really the way we ensure that we remain relevant, we remain contributors in the future workforce, happens through that the human element of wisdom that can't be replicated via AI or whatever. How do we get there? Because we're more polarized in society than we've ever been. There's more disinformation and misinformation than there's ever been. My goodness, it seems like a hard thing to get to.
Yeah, so those things, I would say, or my view of them, they're more circumstantial because of the way that certain primary platforms are developed. So it's in the design. So that's perhaps a separate thing, because you can just extract yourself from that whole ecosystem. I've done that, and I know many people who've done that, and you don't have to deal with those problems. So that's more of a discussion about architecting your own life. Like, you can really choose which ecosystem, because the system will always override you ultimately. There's a lot of people who want to exist outside of the capitalist system, and you can, but you really have to totally extradite yourself from society. If you want to engage in society, as soon as you enter into it, you're in this capitalist system, and you have to play the game. The system is far more powerful than any individual in that sense. The same is true that if you're engaged in using Twitter or any of the social platforms, I speak to people often who have grand ideas of using it in an intentional way. That's a nice idea, but it doesn't go very far. So unless you've removed all the feeds and you only use it to post stuff, you use it as a tool for marketing where you're not actually receiving anything, you're only pushing things out. As soon as you're on the receptive end of it, you're caught within the system. But then if we look at it as an individual or as a collective, where can you actually take your autonomy and agency? At the level of a corporation and at the level of an individual as an entrepreneur, because I see it on both fronts. The path to go forward is to do less, is straight away. I see it in so many organizations where they're so threatened by the feeling of falling behind. What they do in response to that is they do way more. I was with an organization in November. They brought me in for a week with their senior leadership group to help bring more focus and clarity to where the company was going, because they had 27 priorities. They had 27 priorities. Now, that's a clear sense. And I wouldn't say that we got to any clarity at the end, because there wasn't really a willingness to discard things, to really hone in on what's most important, because that takes courage. That takes courage to say, I know what the most important things are, and we're going to dedicate a lot of effort to that. Now, the consequence of that is that when I spoke with that leadership team, they told me they get about 20 minutes of focused work a day. They're probably on about 8 different Zoom calls. A lot of them shared their frustration where there's no sense of when a project begins or ends. It's this constant digital conveyor belt. I'm just getting involved in a task, and then I'm leaving and I'm getting involved in another task. So there's no sense of fulfillment. I'm putting these 10, 12-hour days in, but it's all this melange. I don't know what I'm actually doing. I'm just constantly working on tasks. You take the industrial age, you work on a physical thing, you build it, it emerges, you finish it, you pass it off, it's done. Right. In the digital age, there's no sense of that. And oftentimes that's because there's just an influx of meetings and tasks that are being dumped on top of each other, that we have no sense of what my craft is. Now, this happens to entrepreneurs as well that run their own business, where I do work with individuals. They lose sight of what their value is, and they make decisions based on the outside market. Oh, there's a lot of traction on Instagram. There's a lot of traction in email marketing. There's a lot of traction on TikTok, on LinkedIn. And now they've spread themselves so broadly that they are just a figure that is responding to the trends and the algorithms of these platforms. And in that, they might develop an audience, but they feel extremely empty inside because they are not nurturing their own internal craft. They are not nurturing their own internal wisdom. They're not actually developing deep wisdom. They're just sharing content. That's all it is. And because it's not valuable anymore, because it's so broadly available, they don't feel deeply valued in themselves. They just have to keep on pushing and pushing and providing. So we're coming to a point of saturation where we're exhausting all of these avenues, exhausting ourselves, wasting such a tremendous amount of energy just to stay in this, just to keep surviving. Whereas personally for myself and many others that I know that I'm in tight connection with, we've gone the opposite way. We do so much less. We earn more, we do better work, we work with better people, we feel so much more fulfilled, and we have a lot of space for our own practices in life to go deeper in that. So that's the path. Now, a lot of people don't like that because then you have to kind of confront yourself, and you have a lot of internal things to confront once you do less. Because oftentimes it's the busyness, which is just an escape from everything that's happening internally.
Yeah, wow, there's a whole lot there. Finding ways to prune back is one of the kind of foundational elements of what I hear you saying, because life is so complicated, so busy. There's so much noise, so much constant vying for our attention, the oversaturation in the digital age, the constant bombardment of information. Like, if we want to have wisdom, we can't, there's no way that I think I'm a fairly intelligent person. I'm a well-educated person. There's no way that I can stay up on and consume all of the stuff that is produced on a daily basis, even directly within like the niche area that I tend to focus on. There's just way too much, right? And so what part of the wisdom comes into me being able to articulate my values, being able to articulate my priorities, and then to hone in on what is going to be most valuable for me, for my family, for my clients, all of that. That's really hard to do. I couldn't help but chuckle a few minutes ago when you're talking about the client you were working with where they had 27 priorities. Like, 27 priorities means you don't have any priorities. That's not a priority list. Like, there's just no way, regardless of our good intentions. We may say all 27 of those things are vitally important to our business. There is no way that you can accomplish anything when your attention is spread that thin. So you really do have to find how to hone in, and that is so hard. You use the word courage, I believe. That takes courage. It takes commitment to mission and values alignment. And maybe, for some listening, they're saying, "Oh, there's no way I'm giving up the internet. There's no way I'm giving up social media, whatever. Like, everyone has to make their own decisions regarding how they're going to be plugged into these ecosystems, how they're going to be plugged into the broader systems that you described. But ultimately, we need to be courageous in pruning back in our lives. If we want to be present, if we want to be mindful, if we want to be intentional and purpose driven in what we do, just filling our lives with more and more busyness isn't going to get it done. We're going to feel hollow. That's just, I think, the natural outcome of that kind of a life. And you see it all the time. I mean, it's portrayed in movies and TV shows. You have the kind of the caricature of the 40-something midlife crisis. Largely, a lot of times people wake up at some point and they realize, what is the point? Why am I grinding every day when nothing really changes? And yeah, maybe I have a nice house, but I also have a huge mortgage and I'm like house poor. Or, maybe the things don't really bring you fulfillment. What brings you fulfillment, what allows you to articulate, and provide value and exercise wisdom, is the relationships that you have, the people that you interact with. That's, in this digital age, That's a hard thing sometimes to admit to ourselves, and it's probably even a harder thing, for even if we can't admit it, to then put in place habits and live in such a way that's actually consistent with the values that we're espousing around how we interact with each other. I want, I have a large family. I'm married. I have 6 children. I want to be present for my kids. I want to provide for them. Yes. I want them to have a healthy, productive life. Yes. But I want to have good relationships with my children. That's first and foremost. I want it, but I can't do that if I'm not there. I can't do that if I don't interact with them. I can't do that if we're all sitting on the couch on our own devices at night, not actually talking. It's there's these trade-offs, and that's hard, but that's also where the wisdom comes in, right?
Hugely. And these things that you spoke about there, John, like the importance of your family and your children, you can't optimize that, right? I mean, you can't create some sort of efficient path towards a great moment with your child. And this is something that I'm seeing in so many avenues of different industries, where my cousin, for example, she's a GP in Dublin. Sorry, my computer just dropped off for a moment. My cousin is a GP in Dublin, and she, in her practice, they're trying to get her down to 10 minutes per patient that comes in to visit her. And she just won't do it. She's holding out for 15 minutes to see 4 patients every hour. But she told me that the worst thing that somebody can come in and ask her is, now, while I have you, let me tell you about, because she can only deal with one problem at a time. And the way that she can treat them is really just administering things. She can really just administer medication. Where in fact, we were talking about it, that sometimes just because they could be older patients, they might be lonely and isolated. Just the very act of coming in to see her, to sit with her, to feel like they can have a little bit of a chat, could actually make a great change in their health and their well-being. But she doesn't have the time or space to do it. And she's there trying to sneak in a Snickers bar from her drawer in between patients because she doesn't have time to get lunch. And this is happening across all spans of the health industry. But then if you look at it in terms of service-based businesses, a lot of people who work in the realm of sales, they don't even have time to actually fully engage with their clients, because they just they either are caught in metric cycles where they have to get a certain amount of calls every day. So they're just thinking, I can't let this call go over like 7 minutes because I've got another 4 that I have to do over the course of the next hour. I have to log my time. So all of these things, because we have these tools which can track and measure everything, it starts to enter into us where we start to think that every minute deserves utility. But in and of that, there's no depth, because we're just kind of skimming the surface constantly. We become fantastic taskmasters. And the way that I think about this is, when I started out when I left college, I studied law, but I was much more interested in the world of hospitality than law. So I moved to New York to work in restaurants. And I started managing a restaurant when I was 22. And you got to see all of the different players in the restaurant. So you had myself, the general manager, and you had the partners who own the restaurant. Our role was just to kind of oversee things, to see what the flow of what was happening. But then you had the dishwashers, the bussers, the line cooks, the head chef, the front of house staff. Now, a dishwasher is such an important role in the restaurant. But a dishwasher's role will rarely cross over into being a line cook or into being a general manager, because it's a whole different leap in what gets done. The general manager and the owner really have to refrain from engaging in all of the tasks around them, because if they do, they'll actually mess up the whole flow of the restaurant. They need everybody else to own their responsibility. But the dishwasher needs to just be very good at washing dishes, in and out, get them done. But if you just stay in that role, you'll never emerge into the others. And for us in life today, there's moments of time where we have to play the role of the dishwasher, get things done quickly. Then we have to be the line cook, which is seeing all the orders which are coming up, what I just made, what I have to make, garnishing, cooking, many different dishes on the pan. That's the kind of multitasker which is necessary in life. But we also have to play the role of the general manager, who's overseeing the flow of everything, either in our organizations, our companies, or our teams. And then you have to play the owner, who's just sitting back, playing the long game and really watching how this whole ecosystem is playing out. But this ecosystem actually lives within us as individuals. And most people that I see are simply living at that line of being like the dishwasher. They just do. They're constantly in motion. And the more dishes that they wash faster, the more dirty dishes that will come in. So I just think that there's a need for people to be brought into being able to actually be with themselves. Because this is what I saw when I started out on this journey teaching speed reading and memorization, was that people had no control over their attention. As soon as I decide I want to do something, my attention brings me somewhere else, and I have no way to rein it back in. I haven't learned the tools or the skills to do so. So I am at the mercy of my impulses and cravings. And those are bad enough with sugar and processed food, but you add in notifications and screens and pings and sounds and many distributed digital personas, it becomes so much worse. So with the work that I do at Hara, I'm really trying to develop a new way to go about business, because I truly believe that business can be a real path for incredible self-growth and self-development. I think it's the best out there, actually, because you're forced to constantly take responsibility. And when you don't take responsibility for the things you need to, it will come back to bite you. So you're constantly confronting yourself. But it can be done in a way where you develop as a person entirely, as opposed to just focusing on the dollar sign to make money and exhausting and fatiguing and draining yourself along the way.
Yeah. Patrick, this has just been a really insightful conversation. I know at the time I need to let you go, but before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Great. So patrickmcandrew.co, that's my site, or hara.co. I do speaking work for organizations on this theme of the productivity paradox. And then within Hara, we have this inner circle for people who just really who really see business as a path for growth and a path for good and want to grow within it. So within that, we have, a lot of in-person meetups throughout the year. And then we have this online community where we're going deeper into our craft and into our practices and developing that capacity to do less. And you can also reach me on LinkedIn. I'd love if this resonated with you. You can reach out. That is the one social channel where I'm there, where you could connect with me and send me a message. And you mentioned there at the end, John, a final word on today.
Yeah.
Just in wrapping things up.
Yep.
So there was a guy who came to me once and he said, Patrick, I have all of the intention, but no attention. And I think that was a very important insight, where many of the struggles that we face today, we often will blame ourselves and feeling that we don't have enough drive or motivation and we need to push harder. But in fact, I would disagree with that. I would say that what we need is a dedicated effort to develop certain skills and faculties of managing our attention, being able to shift between intensity and calmness, being able to engage in the digital space and disengage from it. And those are all skills to be developed. That's what we do at Hara. We bring in physical practices to work on that. And really just to release that blame and judgment that you need more intention. I see it everywhere. I see people with incredible drive, motivation, and hunger for what they want. But the very block that they're facing is themselves. So I would encourage you to work on yourself and give time and compassion towards yourself, and stop comparing yourself to everybody else. Release that. And those are the things that I think are really important at this time that we're living in.
Wonderful. Patrick, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Patrick and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.